All right, we should be recording. So welcome to Sakai Tools for Interaction. We are going to be talking about creating different question types in Sakai for tests and quizzes. I am Amanda Alford, and I am joined by Corey Bauer. We are both instructional designers here at West Liberty University. We are both former ed tech coaches and instructional coaches. We are both certified Google trainers, and we are both secondary teachers. I am a former science teacher, and Corey is a former computer science and social studies teacher, and there is our information. In case you need to get a hold of each of us, you can email us. It's just our first and last name at West Liberty, or you can also put in a help ticket with our help ticket system, and we also get those. So today we are working in Sakai. And so to do that, this is going to be a little interactive. That is the goal, and that I am going to show you and talk to you about things here in the Google slide presentation, but I'm also going to actually take you into Sakai itself and show you what that looks like in Sakai. That way you can, and I will walk you step by step, but that way you can see where to go, how I got there, what I clicked on, what it should look like on your screen, because I really do hope that this can be beneficial and that all of you can get a little piece out of it. So the things that we're learning about today are just really basic. I want you to be able to explain the variety of types of questions in Sakai, develop some skills in creating and managing those questions, and then be able to apply the various types in Sakai and feel comfortable doing that. So the very first thing to do to be able to create all of these questions and access them is to find out where to find them at in Sakai. So I am in Sakai myself, and I'm just going to go to my testing. This is kind of my sandbox or playground account where I can go in and mimic different things. So here on the left side, you have all of your tools. Now, if it looks like this, and you just have icons, just click those little arrows down there and you can expand. Now, yours may be in a different spot because you have the ability to move them, but somewhere, if you scroll, you should see tests and quizzes. Okay, so when you click on that, this will appear. Now, depending on how many quizzes and tests you've already built, you probably have a lot more options right here. A couple of things to point out real quick. It says draft right here. That means it's not published. Okay, when the word draft is not next to the title, that means it has been published. You can see up here that we have assessments. We can click add. And we'll go through this here a little bit, but this is creating using an assessment builder or markup tool. We have assessment types that you can see, question pools, and we will get into the pools and the sub pools, and then event log, activity, and trash. Okay, so just kind of giving you that heads up of how to access it. Again, it should just be right here on the left sidebar and somewhere in tests and quizzes. If for whatever reason you cannot find it and it is gone in the site that you're playing with, just go down here to site info, go to manage tools, and scroll all the way down. It is in alphabetical order, and you can just checkbox that and add it to the site. Just hit continue and add it if it's not there. So just in case you're sitting there wondering where yours went and why it's not there, you can just go to site info and add it. Okay, so let's talk about the different types of questions. So I'm going to go over a few basic ones for you, and then I'm going to show you some others and basically tell you that those are a little bit more advanced and help you and guide you in how to get to those. So the types we're talking about are multiple choice, true and false, matching, fill in the blank, and essay or short answer. Those are the ones that we're going to highlight specifically today because these are the most commonly used ones. Now we are, like I said, going to talk about a few others, but these are the ones that we're going to mainly highlight. So real quick, For those of you who maybe are new to creating tests and assessments, the most commonly used type is multiple choice. You can in Sakai choose one choice, or you do have the option to choose multiple choice. So if you have the question, select all that applies, and you know that there's more than one answer. I will show you today how to create a multiple choice question with multiple answers or a single answer. True false is generally a really good one as well. I personally, as an educator, do not recommend having a complete test full of true false questions because, I mean, if you think about it, you're giving them a 50-50 chance. And if you are wanting a true assessment, you probably don't want 20 questions of just true and false. A true and false question here or there is great to help students judge and is useful for quickly assessing the student's grasp of some factual information. But it's very straightforward, but I personally would not recommend just a full assessment of true false, because you want to apply their knowledge to the scenarios and understand the material. We also have short answer or essay. I will let you know that in Sakai, just real briefly, short answer and essay, you still have to grade it. Okay, we can apply a rubric to it, but you are still going to have to go old school and grade it. Unlike true and false and multiple choice and even matching, Sakai can grade it for you, and that is very nice. But if you choose a short answer, if you choose a essay question, you will need to grade that on your own because, you know, think about it, you're evaluating analytical skills, you're evaluating critical thinking skills, you're probably grading them on the writing ability, and you want that deeper reflection. And to be able to do that, you don't want a machine grading that. You want to be able to grade the students based off a rubric. We do have matching. I will say matching is more of a formative assessment as well. Typically, these are used for vocabulary words, concepts like that. It is an effective way to test students' ability to recognize relationships, so a compare and contrast type concept. But again, language learning, memorizing cycles, vocab words, that's typically what a matching is for. And typically matching is a section. Again, you wouldn't have a full assessment just based off matching. And then you have fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks are just, as it says, you fill in the blank. You can have Sakai grade fill in the blanks. The only thing is you have to be very careful that the student spells it correctly. Because when you put in the correct answer, you type the correct answer. So you do have a couple of options to choose. You know, do you want caps on? Because odds are you will spell it correctly, punctuate it correctly, and capitalize it correctly, and students will spell it like it's a text message. And so do you want to have that ability? So just a few things to think about. But they are good for assessing very precise knowledge of terminology, dates, formulas, if you want those things. They are really ideal for key terms, like I said, dates, formulas, vocab words. So just kind of giving you that heads up. So the first thing we're going to do is create a multiple choice question. So to do that, we're going back into Sakai. I do want to show you that it tells you up here, you know, multiple choice, change question type, everything like that. But when you go to Sakai, we're going to go to test. We're going to go to add. Okay. You do have to give it a title. I will let you know it will not let you go any further unless you give it a title. So just to show you, if you forget, it does this. It will tell you, hey, you need a title. So you can just give it an example. Okay, so just example, test, blah, 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 however you want to title it for today. Or if you're like, no, we're going, starting right now, let's build this thing, you're more than welcome to do that as well. But make sure you give it a title. Click create. Oh, I have a duplicate one. It does not like duplicates either. It likes originality. And you will see this screen. And so we have add part, which we will go over, preview, all of those. It tells you how many questions are in it. And it says add question. And we have a drop-down menu. And so here are the types of questions that you can add to Sakai as a test or a quiz. So we're going to go here to multiple choice. And you don't have to click anything. It does it all on its own. So there's no submit or next or anything. It does it. It may just take it a second. And here is where you can build question 1. Now, I will show you here later on in this session how to upload a mass amount of questions if you're like, I am not building this one at a time. Because you, as a developer and as a faculty member, may be making a 20 question quiz, and you're like, you know what, I will build 20 questions. Corey and I build 120 questions at a time. And so instead of individually typing 120 questions, I will show you how you can also import to speed it up. But if for whatever reason you're like, oh, I chose the wrong type, you still have this drop down menu where you can change at any point. If you accidentally chose wrong, you don't have to go back. Point value. Here, this is for this point alone. You can put in point value, display the point value while the student is taking the exam. Some students want to know how much each question's worth, especially if you're going to divide it up. So if one question is worth 2 points and it's just got a simple true false question, that's fine. But if it's a multiple choice and it can have partial credit or anything like that, you probably want the students to know, do they have extra credit? Down here is the answers. Single correct answer, that means there's one. Do you have one correct answer? Or multiple correct? So if you're like, no, there are multiple options, you can click on that. So say A and C are the answer. You have that ability. You can deduct points for one correct, so maybe they got one right and one wrong. You have a lot of options here. I will show you about the alt text editor here later on. So I'm skipping this for right now because we do have a section where we will go back to this. If you want to add an attachment, you know, maybe you want to show them a chart, maybe you want to show them a graph, maybe you want to show them a picture, a diagram, something, you can add that. Now, I will also show you how to do that later on in this session about adding attachments, because we do want them to come from our resource folder in our class, but I will show you how to do that. But you do have that ability. So if you're like, there was a diagram that I saw in this textbook, and that is what I want to ask those questions on, because you want to ask what part of the cell is letter B, you can add that in. Then you type the correct answers. So you would type what your question is, and then you would put different choices. And then you would have all of your options. Then you would select which one's the correct answer. Sakai does not automatically know what the correct answer is. You have to select it. Do you want to insert additional answers? So if you're like, I don't want 4 options, I want multiple options, you can select how many more. Do you want the answers randomized? I recommend this. I really recommend randomizing the answers. So that means the answer is D for me because the answer is 8, but for Corey, it could be A because that's the way that would show up on the test. Do you want to require the rationale? That really depends on you. Okay, do you want the rationale added to this? Do you want it, what part? Right now we just have one. Do you want to assign it to a question pool? We'll get into that. Do you want to answer? Do you want to give correct feedback? Yes, you got this right because you chose 4 plus 4 is 8 because you should have learned that in first grade that 4 plus 4 was 8. You can add that, or you can give incorrect feedback and you can type something like, no, you were close, but let's think about what we talked about in this lesson and guide them back to the correct answer. So then you would hit save and you would have a question. And then here is, you can see what your question is, how many points it's worth. I can edit the points at any time, what my answer is, and it shows you, yes, I set it up correctly. I promise not to go through every single one of these like this, but I just wanted to go through what it would look like. So then you have true or false questions. So true and false is a little easier, but you basically go through the same motions. So let's go back here and say we want to add another question, and this time it is true and false. So again, it tells me what type. I can change it. I can answer points. Now, because this is true and false, I'm just making it 2. Same thing. Do I want the points to be visualized, extra credit? I type in the question. Okay, so then you ask what your question is. Do you want an attachment? And then basically the answer is either true or false. Do you think the answer is true? And then you just click. And I truly believe that cheesecake is cake. Do you want to require the rationale? And then we can go all the way back through, and it's the same options as the multiple choice. Feedback, all of that. Click yes, and then we can add a true false. And it always shows you everything. It tells you right here that you have 2 questions, so you know. You can see how many points it's worth, all of these things, and I can easily see what my answer is, make sure everything's good to go as I'm building these. Okay, then we start to get a little bit more in depth. Those 2 are the easiest to set up, multiple choice and true and false, but then we start getting a little bit more with short answer. So I'm going to create one more. They are in alphabetical order. My brain's just not thinking that way, so I apologize if I pause for a second. So again, short answer essay. Now here, do you want to add a rubric? Again, because a rubric will be needed when grading this. So do not use a rubric. Maybe you have your own, maybe you have a paper one that you would like to use. Or if you're like, no, I would like my students to see what type of rubric I am going to use while grading, you can go through these. If you do not like these rubrics, you can add your own rubric. If you're not sure how to add a rubric, you can go on to our Office of BE Learning and to our YouTube and to our sites, and we offer rubric training. You can reach out to us. If you know how, you are more than welcome to add your own rubric and preview it. Everything. Hide from the students. What is your question? Okay. You can put all of your requirements. And put all of your criteria if you have an attachment. And then again, model a short answer if you would like to model it. These are all optional. Once you have all of that, you hit save. Okay, and then we have the points. You can see right here that the rubric has been added because I have that icon. And then I can go through the next motion. I will tell you that the next one is creating matching questions. That will take a little bit longer, and that you will need to have both columns. So, you know, if it's vocab words and their definitions, you would need to type the vocab word and the definition. So you would need to have all of that handy. So just showing you real quick what that looks like. Oh, I don't want to say 1 point. So 3, you would type your question. Add an attachment, and then here you would have your choice and your match. So your choice would be and then you would add that as a match and you would save your pairing. And so now I have my match. And then you would just continue that process as you build your multiple choice or as you're matching. And then again, down here, optionals, correct feedback, incorrect feedback, and then hit save. Okay. And what it would do is you would basically have a drop-down menu and you would select all the different options that I would have, just like a regular matching. The last one I'm going to talk about is fill in the blank. This one does get just a little bit more specific, as I was telling you, and that you have to be very of how you set it up. Now, the positive thing is that it does give you the answers right here. It does give you the examples, so you're not having to remember all of the rules. So again, give options. Do you want the points? Fill in blankers. So do you want it by default? Default is using these custom markers in your question. Custom is you creating the characters. I recommend, at least until you get comfortable with this, doing default. I think I can speak for Corey as well that we both would use default at this point only because it is the easiest to use and we know it will go through Sakai. Sakai will accept it and it won't kick it back and the question won't look different and messed up. So an example of this would be we would use the markers, and so we would say, you know, roses are, and then and so these indicators show that that is what I would like for my word. Now, do I want it to be case sensitive? Because think of your students, think of your target audience. You know how they spell. So do you want it to be case sensitive? Some people do. If this is a writing course or English, you probably want it to be case sensitive. Do you want it to be mutually exclusive, meaning that it has to be identical, absolutely identical? And can you ignore spaces? Meaning like this, two space, and basically having too many spaces, or does it have to be perfect right there? Like I said, this gets a little bit more complicated. You can add an attachment, everything else, everything's the same, and then save. Okay, and as you can see right here, here are my blanks. Those two markers indicated that's my word, and it shows also what they need to go in place, and so that's what the question would look like for the students. Now, before I move on, does anyone have any questions about the 5 types of basic questions that I've built? Anything before we move on into a little bit more deeper material? All right. Well, let's move on. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the text editor. Okay, enhancing accessibility and organization. So as we said, things can get a little hairy, and you can go as deep as you want into this. The reason we bring this up, and we're going to talk about it here in the text editor and show you all that, is this. Here's an example of a real case. Now, we're not going to go into any information. We're going to keep secrets, but the question was, write the name of the Hindu deity that best fits this picture. And there was an attachment. There was a picture that the students were to look at. They titled the picture the correct answer. So we're going to show you how, we're going to kind of walk you into this and show you how to do this. But just be careful of when you're using the design process. One, we know that it's important to be clear, exclusive, and fair, but we also don't want you giving them the answer. So let's dive back into Sakai and show you. So if you just want to take a break for a second, if you've been working alongside me, take a break and just sit back and we will show you how this works. So I'm going to create another multiple choice because this was a multiple choice question. And we're going to go down here and we're going to show you the rich text editor. Now, when I click on that link, it opens up into what we normally see as our editor when we're building. So I mean, you see this all the time in Sakai. I just click the down arrow, it opened it up. I can, move it however I want. Okay. So a couple of things when you're in this. One, please use simple and clear language. If you get too complex, you will confuse or distract the question's main point. The goal is to assess the student's knowledge of the subject, not on how easily the students can misread or misinterpret the question. You want to assess their knowledge. Also, when you're doing this, please avoid negative questions. The question that I feel should never be written on a question or on a test is, which of the following is not? Again, think of your target audience. The goal is not to just see how confusing we can make it. We want to highlight, do students understand the material? So try to avoid the negative questions like that. Provide all the necessary information that you would need, and be very specific. Don't give a bunch of information. I hate those word problems in math where they're like, oh, he went to the store and he bought 3 oranges, 2 watermelons, all da 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 da. How far did he drive? Don't give information if the information is not needed, because again, you're going to confuse them. So just be specific and direct. Okay. So going on to that, that's off my little soapbox. We want to add an image. And so, Tori, I'm going to let you step on and I will guide as you tell me what to add on. So you can tell me specifically if you want me to add, because I've got some images in the resource folder I can pull up.
Okay.
So
I have questions that are identify the picture. So I would write in this box, identify the following information, colon, and then I'm going to leave a space to where I'm going to embed the picture. So then I go to the picture tool and I go and grab it out of my resources folder. Okay, and then for the classes that I built, the purpose of the question was to identify the picture. So I can't really give the alternative text that's very, like, I can't say this is the Mona Lisa with, you know, a painting or whatever. I say that this is a painting of an image of a woman from the Renaissance period. You know, it's enough description that if somebody was using the accessibility feature that couldn't quite see some of the details, there's at least a gist there. But I didn't give it away. And click OK. Then below the picture, I would have more text that say I want the artist and maybe the civilization, or you know, the type of painting it was. You know how there's you know, humanistic, and there's Egyptian, and there's pottery, and you know, kind of what its method is.
We're gonna find out that I can't spell civilization. That's
so
okay.
So my reasoning of embedding the picture rather than having an attachment of a picture is that saves a click. So in terms of accessibility, it's one less thing that the student has to do. You can just see the picture. And when I'm reviewing the quiz as a designer, I can scroll through all these questions and see the images and make sure I have the right one there. Because when you're building it, you can see the picture and the question in your quiz tool, but also the correct answer. So it's a way to kind of double check to make sure you get the right picture with the right stuff. So if you put just put Mona Lisa and make that the correct answer, and then we'll just put Bob and Jane and whatever for the other ones. Because down here at the I've usually built these as short answer. So as multiple choice, it's going to have the answer, but here I'd always randomize, and then I would put this question in a pool as I build it. So then when I go to build the actual exam in the course, I can just pull what I've already built over, and it's much faster. Because I'm spending a lot of time building this question by question. I'm really paying attention to what I'm doing. But then when I build the test, it's a more efficient process.
Now you can also do the reverse. And if you want to have the question, the words, and images as answer choices.
Mhm.
So say you want to do the reverse, and which image is an artifact from the Renaissance period, and then or which is an image of the correct, the mitochondria, which is the correct formula for whatever it is you're teaching. You can put the images in, and we do recommend when formulas, because Sakai is mainly user-friendly to formula characters, but not all formula characters. We recommend also if you can put an image of the formula in instead of trying to type out the image.
You can also, so you can use the images for matching. So in this case, I had, pictures of the deities with names of the deities, and they were matching. So it's the same concept in a different way. And that's where I would embed the picture. So then I'm gonna show my screen for just a second, so Amanda, so they can see what this question looks like. When I have pictures and matching, of course, I need to kind of make these a similar size, so it's not quite so weird. But I can have a picture and match. So it is another way to do the same thing.
You should have sharing abilities to take over.
Did you see it? Can you see it? No?
I still see mine.
Are you sure? But I'm sure it is.
Okay.
You have to go up to view options at the top and click on that, and then it'll give you the option to switch over to Corey's screen.
Because I have multiple participants can share simultaneously.
Do you all see my screen with pictures?
Hold on. Here, I know what I'll do. Hold on. Mine's... There you go.
So here's what I was saying. I can have pictures of these and then the items here. And if you click on save image as, I actually named them picture 1, picture 2, picture 3. So even if you use screen reader or you kind of do this hack of, well, what is that named? I didn't give you any information that's going to help you kind of cheat on this question. And then because there are so many pictures, here's why I recommend naming them something consistent. And as you build and you attach it to a question and it's saved in Sakai, it shows you this little lock. So as I go, I know that these images have not been used in a question yet. These have. So when you start dealing with large amounts of pictures that you don't want to name specifically to give it away, you can still keep track as you build. So those are just kind of tips. Okay, your screen.
My screen. All right, going back. Here we go. All right. So next is importing questions. Now, importing questions and using question pools can be fantastic as long as you have them set up in the way Sakai wants them. So Sakai lets you know, so I'm going to give you a couple of options. So I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to go back to assessments. And you can see my example 1, things like that. So add. And this time I'm going to use the markup text because this time I want to import a lot. Another thing you can do is if you want, you can import from a file. So if you already have them in a file, you can. What I do here is I use this because a lot of times faculty members give me the questions, and Corey, they give us the questions in a Word doc or a Google Doc. And so what you do is you would give the title. If you want to give a description, you're more than welcome to. And then you have this box. Now, the positive thing is right over here, you do have links from Sakai giving you examples. So it gives you the general instructions, but here's an example. If you want to add a multiple choice, single correct answer, you can click on this and it will show you all of this. It will show you exactly how to set up the question, everything you need. So if you want to randomize it, you hashtag randomize, rationale, everything. And if you have every question set up that way in your Word doc or your Google Doc ahead of time, you can put all of them in at once. You can also go through and it shows you the fill in the blank. So if you want, you can just put questions, a blank, asterisk, blue, short answer, true or false, all of those. Okay, so everything that you need. So I'm going to show you an example of how I do this. So here is a quiz that I've been given. And what I do is I go through and there's a couple of things that I personally do. One, this is from an instructor who has given me this information. And so I just take the information that she gives me and a couple of things. First, when you do this, you can't have the parentheses. That character will screw this whole thing up in a heartbeat. And Corey and I have both found that the hard way. We have both gone through and put questions in and we're like, where did half of them go? And we come back and we realize, oh, there's that. So no parentheses on the number or the answer. Then you go through and I will let you know, it can be capital A, it can be lowercase a, does not matter. You just have to have, and it can be, if you really wanted, you could put other letters there, but it just has to have a character, a period, and then the answer. And as you can see, it can be full sentences, it can be one word. You can do this with true and false as well. You just put the asterisk by the name or by the correct answer, and you can do it that. If you want to put in points, you can. I recommend putting in points if each question is going to be different. So say you are going to have a variety of questions, then yes, put in the points. If you want to put hashtag randomize, you can. There's also another way of doing that I will show you here at the end. So I do it this way. I just go from number 1 and I'll go down to like 8. And I click copy. And this is just in a Google Doc. I copy it, I go over here and I click paste. And I just make sure a couple of things. One is the spacing correct. So there should be one spacing. So if it looks like this and there's kind of a bigger space, just click up. These are just little things that I do. Make sure asterisk, yep, everything looks good. Everything looks good. You can have the arrows, everything. And then I click next. And it takes a second. And then here, it just put all of those questions in for me. Now, it did make this a multiple choice because it is true or false. It doesn't recognize it as a true and false. I can go back and change that if I want, but I personally just leave it there. I realize right now it has 0 points, but I will go back and change that here in just a few minutes. But now I've got all 8 questions. Everything looks good. I can create an assessment and just make the test, or I can create a question pool. I'm going to make it a question pool because we're going to need this here in a few moments. So a question pool takes, depending on how many questions it is, a pool takes anywhere from 30 seconds to about 5 minutes before it will import into Sakai. So it did not immediately show up. Do not get stressed or anxious if it does not immediately appear. It will, it just takes a few minutes. So I just also want to make that aware because again, it depends also on how much you've put in. So we'll come back to that here in just a second. Another thing you can do is, like I said, is import the documents as I've seen it. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can go through and just click import and go the other way. I go copy and paste. And the reason I do that is because I want to go back through and make sure, did all the questions appear correctly? Did they format correctly? So that is up to you, but you can, as I was showing you, go through and click import. So I'll go back to add and import them from here, choose file, and go that way. So that is an option if you want to do that. So I'm going to go back over here to my pools, and here's my example too. So, and that is what we are moving on to next is question pools. So test pools. Okay. So a couple of things here. I can, as you see, I have some drop downs. Drop down of different chapters that I have. And I can add this to a sub pool. I can copy it. I can move it. I can share it. Now, a couple of things we want you to know about pools. You make it, you own it. So if you, and Corey, I'm going to let you get into this as well because you've experienced this a little bit more than I have. But when a faculty member sends us a question in the help ticket and they are asking about questions, a lot of times they don't own the pool that these questions came from. So then there's a lot of backtracking that we have to do to figure out who owned this, who owns the pool. So Corey, if you want to explain that a little bit more, because I know you've experienced that a little bit more than I have.
Yeah, so what we've decided is we have instructors come and go and they've made pools, and some of them have made the pools that are the master for the course. If there's a question with an incorrect question, we have to figure out who made the test pool because it doesn't say who the creator is. It just says what pool name it is. So we, as the designers, try to keep the pools with us because there's a much smaller number of us that have been through the institution than instructors. And when we make these pools and put them in a master, we try to name them with something specific. So like Amanda's showing here, she has them named by courses. Then we have sub pools under those courses that usually are by the module. So when you make your quiz or exam and you've added a part and you pulled, some questions from the pool, that part also name it something that we can track it to. Because if you have, 50 questions from a publisher and you put them all in one course and they're not, there's no sub pools, we're looking through hundreds of questions to try to find the one that might have the wrong answer marked, or, it needed to update it. It didn't have the right year or number or whatever. So we tried to keep these as organized as possible. And especially as, say, textbooks change and the test banks themselves change, that we want to put the old pool aside and have a new one. So dating them helps us in the long term keep the right pool with the right term, because it does get messy pretty fast.
So you can transfer ownership. So if so for an example, I own these pools. So say, for example, I know that I am going to leave the institution and move on to another institution or another job. I can transfer these ownerships of these pools onto Corey or another member of the Office of E-Learning. That way it stays with West Liberty and it doesn't really just basically create a huge cluster after I leave, because that has a ripple effect, like that has a domino effect. So I can add a new pool. So right now, this is its own pool. So if I wanted to add this, so say I wanted to add this to my management class, I can move it. I can add a sub pool and that's what I've done right here is I've started adding, or I can move it. So it will always look like this at first. It will always come up as its own pool. It does not automatically end up as a sub pool, but if I want to move it, I just click move. And then I decide, where do I want it to go? Where can I? And it can have an accordion effect. So if this is my overall course, this is my overall chapter or module, I can then put it in under that. So I can put it here. I can just put it right here and click move. And now it has been moved. It tells me how many questions are in each one. It tells me how many subpools. And if at any time I need to copy it, move it again, I can. I just click those, or I can click delete and delete it. Please don't delete your subpools. That is an option, but we really prefer that you don't delete a subpool unless it's just your sandbox that you're playing around in, because again, that has a ripple effect. So please don't delete them unless you just absolutely need to, but you do have that option. Okay. Another thing, once we've gone through all of this, is how do you preview and publish your quizzes? So going back, I'm going to go back to my test. Okay, and I have these examples. And I now want to publish this. This says draft, so this hasn't been published, but I want to publish it. I can go straight to publish, but most of you probably want to add some settings. So I can preview it, edit, change it, but I'm going to go to settings because I want to figure out what do I want everything to happen. It automatically goes to availability and submission. So how many times can it be submitted? If you want it to be submitted more than once, you can. Automatically, this is default. You can change this to however you want. When will it be available? So right now, that's when it was created, so that's when it becomes available. I can go in and just like anything else, I can change it to any date, any time, however I want. I can make it the due date. Do I want to have a late submission? These are all things that you see in assignments, discussions, everything like that. So none of that is different. Okay.
Amanda, I also want to point out that if you have a timed test and a due date, so like typically, you know, most quizzes are due on a Sunday night, 11:55 p.m. We do have a lot of students who start like the last possible minute they could probably get to the exam, like say 10:45 or, you know, like 11. If your exam is timed, say it's an hour or 2 hours or whatever, but they're really, when they start the test, that time really, they're not going to have 2 hours before that deadline is. It's going to kick them out. And so, but it's going to wait. That data has to kind of like sync in time to go into your grade book and stuff. So students may think that they have 2 hours to do it, but not if you have a deadline on it. So so we try to encourage students to start the test before, so there is enough time to actually run out that clock before your deadline is. But some of them wait to the last possible minute and they get 10 minutes of actual test time. In that case, it's up to you if you want to extend it and reopen it for them or not. But we do have a lot of last minute students.
And there is that, we have the exceptions and availability, so you can change that. You can do it per student. So like Corey was just saying, if you have one student and that happened, you can give an exception, you can extend it, and you can do the time limits, all of that. Just be careful because that is a very real possibility. Then we get to grading and feedback. Okay, now I can show you this, but I can also switch over to another class that has this going on right now because there should be another icon right here. So I'm going to jump over to a course so you can see what this looks like. Okay. And so same thing, deadlines, it's not timed, and then we get down here to grading and feedback. So if you have multiple submissions, highest score, latest submission, but then we have adding to gradebook. You will need to have your gradebook set up prior to this. So you will need to have your categories set up. Okay, so just kind of giving you that option, but you can send the assessment score straight to gradebook. If you have questions about that, we do have gradebook trainings. We have sessions that have already been built and recorded. but you can send it and then you select a category and you can click and I can send it to quizzes. And we talk about that here a little bit more, but you want the assessment score to go to gradebook. We want you to use your gradebook because students want to see their assessment and you also want to be able to track that. Corey, I know you have something to add.
So the institution is buying a retention software that's looking for indicators in the students' online history about whether they're likely to fail a class or they are failing a class, and that alert people to help them, like the Student Success Center. So this data has to come from Sakai based on what's in there in the gradebook. So what we're looking for is that there are assignments that they're graded when they were submitted, how far behind are they, how many missing assignments, what's their overall percentage. So the more instructors and sections we have using the gradebook, the more data we have for that whole effort to like look for the students who are possibly falling behind for it to work. So this is kind of key of when that assessment is done, it's in the gradebook so that data is saved there, so that data can be pulled for other purposes.
Mm-hmm. All right, so once you have everything, you can choose the layout, you can change the appearance. I mean, you have a lot of options in this accordion settings. So you can go through and see how you would like, and then you click Save Settings and Publish. Now, this tells me that there's another title, which is fine. So I'm going to save. And then what that will look like. So just to go here so you can see it, is we go through, it gives you all of the information, we hit save, but because I've opened it, did I change anything? I want to make sure, because if I change anything, I have to republish it. And that is a big thing.
If you change your questions,
yeah, if I
you can change your settings after you publish. Like if you need to move a due date.
Yeah.
Go to edit.
So make sure, because if not, a lot of times you will have to republish, and that is another question we get a lot, is I went through, I changed, why hasn't anything appeared? And I'm like, well, it's because you need to republish. So make sure there should not be a draft right here. This is a published one. It tells you that it's published. That is what you'll want to see. Okay. So last thing, because of time, and that is Respondus. Some of you love it, some of you hate it, but let's explain how to use it. Okay, so with Respondus, the idea, if you are new to Respondus, the idea is that is a lockdown browser that can lock down testing in an LMS. So we have it to lock down testing in Sakai when students are taking the test that we just saw. What the purpose is it is to prevent students from accessing other things. So they can't go to other websites, they can't go to other apps, other files during the test. So the instructor can control the classroom basically in the testing environment, and it prevents cheating. This is perfect in an in-person course because they're all taking the exam at the same time. You can start at the same time, you're in the same room, the teacher can supervise, and you can walk around. The problem though is when we get to online courses, because online courses provide flexibility. We may have a student take it at 8 in the morning. We may have another student take it 10 minutes before the due date. A lot of flexibility. The other problem is just because it locks down your device doesn't mean the students can't use another device to still find all the answers. And an in-person course, a professor is going to see somebody pull out their phone or another laptop or a tablet and look it up. This on online, you're not going to be able to actually monitor the students' integrity, because in class, once the exam starts, students can't access other things. everything's locked down. But online, that's not the case. And a lot of times, because it's online and students aren't seeing what's going on, it basically locks up their test. And then the faculty gets frustrated, the student gets frustrated, we get help tickets, we get panicked messages going, my lockdown browser's not working, it's not compatible. Because the other thing is students will try to take the test on other devices that aren't compatible with our Respondus lockdown browser. And because, again, they're online, they probably didn't hear, oh, I shouldn't be taking this on my phone or a Chromebook or an iPad from 2005. It's what I have. And so this causes a lot of issues. And it's really,
we should point out here that although Respondus does work with Chromebooks in the K-12, we have not purchased that. So we have students that come to us with the Chromebooks that they've, gotten from high school or wherever, because it's a cheaper price point. We don't have that capability with our subscription to this Respondus to use it on Chromebooks, and that's where we also get a lot of student tickets.
Yeah. So I know we have given you a lot. Today's session was a lot of information, but does anyone have any questions? I'd be more than happy to go over anything. I realize we are at time, so I do want to make sure that if you need to leave, you can. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. All right, if you do contact us at the Office of eLearning, you can put numerical things in and you can go a little bit deeper. All right, Leela.
Yeah, we have a question about drafting the text.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no problem. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I am going to stop recording.